Want to help me make this a happier and healthier world? Like this video and subscribe to the channel. And if you want to work with me, go find me at ryanspence.biz. Figured out after 3+ years of streaming and having every issue with streaming before, I was able to figure it out. All right. Welcome, everybody. Thank you, Zach. Thank you, Wicked, for being here. Mudzai, thank you again for the resub. Good to see you guys. D, can you hear me okay? Or BB, I should say.
Yeah, I can.
Perfect. Awesome. All right. Everything works. Woohoo.
Woo woo.
Well, yeah. Welcome, everybody. So today's guest is BBXH. Somebody I've known for a couple of years, but I've never really gotten the chance to really have a long conversation with. We got to talk. We've met a couple times at Twitch cons, and we got to talk later in the evening after I had a few drinks at least. At a fun bar last year back in the TwitchCon San Diego. So that was probably the longest conversation we were able to have. So I'm super excited about having you on and get to know you more. If you want to kick it off, tell us who BBXH is.
Okay. Well, hi, everybody. I'm BBXH, or D is my real name. And I'm a Twitch streamer. I've been a streamer for 4.5 years now. And my main game is Sea of Thieves. But I started with other games along the way. And I've also done some esports casting and broadcasting. And I love it very much. And it's my full-time job.
Yeah, that's awesome. And there's so many topics here that I'm really excited you're willing to talk about because they're very unique, like the broadcasting and then, like you mentioned, switching games. So that's what we're going to talk about today. And it's going to be, I think, a lot of things that a lot of people have been interested about. So I'm super excited to hear your thoughts on those. So you said you streamed for 4.5 years, right? You said?
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't even know that. So that's a long time. So what would you say you enjoy about streaming the most?
Ooh. Okay, so my favorite things about streaming, I think the number one is just the fact that you get to meet so many people. Mm-hmm. And I mean, you learn so much from people about other people's cultures or just things that are completely not related to gaming. I can't tell you how many things I don't know, just the most random things that you end up learning from people and that they teach you between languages or how to make cold brew coffee. I know that's super random, but it's something that somebody from the stream taught me just from having a conversation about it. So I think that probably is my favorite because there are people that are from all over the world that I'd probably never meet otherwise. So I love that Twitch has brought us together.
Yeah, it's so well said, especially with Twitch cons. I know we're not going to have the con season this year, but that's one of my favorite things too, is just seeing all your friends that you've made, over the internet, your old friends that you've met before and then your new ones.
I know I'm putting faces to names. Yeah. From the channels is always super cool.
Well, to that point, I remember exactly when I saw you at TwitchCon 2018, walking between some of the things. I'm like, oh my God, I think that's BB. And you recognized me too. I was like, oh my God, BB. So cool to, I wasn't planning to see you in person. I don't think at that point. Yeah. We just happened to intersect with each other, which is cool. So on that same topic, what are some of the things you don't enjoy about streaming? Is there anything you don't enjoy about streaming?
Yeah. I think the things that I don't enjoy about it are, I don't know, I feel like when you're doing something in this industry, you're an entertainer first and foremost. Mm-hmm. And I feel it's super important to remember that. Whether you're doing Twitch or YouTube or anything along those lines, I mean, you're an entertainer. And so not every day is a good day and not every day is you don't feel motivated every day. But I mean, you have to be dedicated more than you are motivated, right? But I think there's the days where you have to push through the bad times. And sometimes you're having a bad day and you get on and unfortunately you end up with trolls in your chat. And it's just something that can eat away and make it worse. But I feel like personally, not everybody's the same. And I understand this and I respect it. But me personally, the way that I view it and what I have been taught about working in this industry is you gotta ignore that. And you have to remember that you're performing and keep that performance on. So there's certain times, it's just sometimes the bad moods build up or things and you can't vent about it until you get off stream. And so I think those are the hardest things sometimes. for me, I think, to deal with.
Yeah, that's a really good to know. So that's like a bonus thing for everybody that's going to be watching this on Twitch and YouTube to think about, because been a little bit of a topic we've talked about, not as much with
Yeah.
chat, but it's definitely something that every streamer I've talked to has had some sort of issue with somebody saying something in chat that
Oh yeah.
rubbed them the wrong way, or maybe they just want to end stream right after that. So your
Yeah.
advice is, excuse me. So your advice is just to kind of like, you got to kind of hold that in and wait until after the stream and then decompress on that later on. You got to keep the show going, is kind of your thoughts.
Yeah, I've learned that that's better, at least for me.
Okay.
Like, for example, I have noticed and I have learned the hard way that, a troll comes in your chat, for example, and they say something and it gets under your skin. And if I fire back at them, I mean, you always have the power, right? And
Yeah.
your mods have the power because you can always shut the conversation down whenever you're done with it by timing them out or banning. But I have noticed the times that I do respond to it, man, like it festers and I remember it and I'm like, oh man, I could have said this and could have said that, just like we always do, I think. But I've noticed that if I ignore it and just delete it, move on, don't address it, I forget it so much quicker. So I've learned it's better to just like keep pushing forward and just keep that positive attitude, keep the entertainment going. And I notice that anything that's bothering me will eventually get pushed behind me.
I love that. I love that because that's a lot of what I encourage people to do too. Is, I mean, that's what trolls want, is they want your attention,
Yeah.
and so if you're giving them that attention, you're giving them exactly what they want and making it worse for you. So I love
Right.
hearing that. Yeah, I
And I
love
will
that
say that
advice.
I learned that because this is a story I always tell is a long, long time ago when I first started streaming, there was somebody that came in and, they say something rude, like, oh, you suck, or whatever, your gameplay's horrible. And you're like, okay, well, that's rude. Time them out. And then I noticed, like, after their 10 minutes, they came back. And I don't know if they thought I forgot, but they were like, oh my gosh, you're so beautiful. And I'm like, uh-huh. Like, I can't take this personal, whatever. This person just like you said, they just want your attention. They want you to reply to them. And so they're going to try. They tried the negative route, didn't work. Then they're going to try to go the flattery route. So I learned that from that. So I
Yeah.
don't take those trolly things personal anymore.
Okay. Yeah. Good. Great advice. I love that. So this is your full time job.
Yeah.
What are your plans for streaming? I mean, how long do you plan to stream? Is it indefinite, or is there anything else you think you plan to do in the works?
So definitely indefinite.
Yep.
Definitely indefinite. I mean, I have no plans to stop anytime
Yeah.
soon. I just kind of see where the adventure takes me. And I definitely didn't expect to end up streaming full time, I will say. So it's been an adventure and a journey. I would really love to, I think my long-term goals is I would love to have a full-time career in TV or shoutcasting or something local that I could do, I guess, similar, but more on like that TV news anchor side of it.
Yeah. Absolutely. So kind of going, this is a nice segue into like one of the first topics we want to talk about. So
Mhm.
if I recall, like you started more in career broadcasting. Was it with Clash Royale? Is that where
Mhm.
you started? Yeah. Could you tell us
Yeah.
about that?
So I used to when I started streaming, like you said, I started with Clash Royale, which if people don't know, it's a mobile game. Most people know Clash of Clans, which is both games are made by Supercell, same characters, but Clash Royale is a 1v1 tower defense game, to put it simply. But anyways, it's something you could easily host tournaments for. And I think that's what really made my streaming career take off, is because I used to host tournaments on my channel. And so it brings people in because people want to compete. And I'd put up gift cards, and if people won, then they would earn themselves a gift card that they can buy gems in the game for example. Then I started working with people who were willing, that were, esports entrepreneurs, and they would sponsor tournaments. They'd be like, hey, you host it on your channel, you be the, vehicle to get people in and organizing on that side, and I'll sponsor the winnings for the tournament. So that's how I got started with that. And because of that, people knew that and I'd be shoutcasting these tournaments as people played. And eventually somebody reached out to me professionally and gave me the opportunity to cast. I was up in Canada, called Northern Arena, Toronto. So that was kind of my first experience getting to travel with esports, and I got to do this live event and had the whole headset with a mic at the desk and
Yeah.
a fellow caster, Woody, and that kind of is what started it for me. And from there, I did another one of those events. And then eventually, the game company Supercell, they started hosting the esports tournaments themselves. Before, it was just third party people putting on these tournaments, and it would be
Mm-hmm.
paired up with like Hearthstone or Overwatch or other games as well for these big events. And then once Supercell started actually hosting the esports tournaments, they already knew who I was because of that. And uh, it's, I guess, good and bad. I mean, I wish there were more female casters, obviously, and I think there's more and more as time goes by and the industry grows, which is great. But it did help me stand out, I think, because there were not many other female casters, and so I was super grateful to be given the opportunity to cast and to host, to be analyst for these different games. And I feel like you do one and you get noticed, and it just kind of is a snowball effect from there. Then people start reaching out to you without needing any kind of agent or talent representation. The people just come out and say, "Hey, I got this event. Can you come cast this?" And for me, I'm always like, "Yeah, absolutely," because like I said, I'd love to do that full time.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, and I think when I got to know you, I'm trying to remember. I think I found you from one of the like a maybe Solstice stream. Like I think you might have been in
Hmm.
there, and
Yeah.
I actually played Clash Royale a little bit, but I didn't really watch the big events. I played Clash Royale I think before I knew you, and then there was like I think you were maybe segueing to start to play Hearthstone,
Hmm.
and but I think maybe I might have saw one of your broadcasts, so or maybe like a replay of an old broadcast or something like that. So I'm actually super jealous of that because that's something I was interested in doing for a while with Hearthstone was getting into doing some broadcasting or doing some play by play, just
Yeah.
because I really like to talk a lot and I think and I'm really analytical too. So I think
Mhm.
doing some sort of maybe color commentary would have been kind of cool. So that's one thing I'm really super excited about learning from you on that. So it all started from you making your own opportunity. You just said, "Hey,
Yep.
let's do this fun event where we just do a tournament and I'll give you some gift cards and then people start pouring in and then meanwhile you're doing something you're passionate about, which is you call shoutcasting. By the way, what's the difference between shoutcasting and broadcasting? I'm kind of curious.
I feel like broadcasting is more like you are hosting your live stream, whereas shoutcasting is maybe you're not necessarily on your own and you're not maybe necessarily running the whole production, but you are calling the play by plays of the match.
Okay, gotcha. Yeah, I'd never heard that term before, so that's awesome.
Yep.
But yeah, you did something you want to do, which obviously this is a passion of yours to be an
Yeah.
anchor, be kind of the face, use your skills around your voice and communicating, and that's super cool. I'm glad that like manifested for you from just kind of a fun idea. It wasn't like you're like, okay, I'm gonna do this, and this is gonna get me, you make me a full time streamer, or
Right.
this isn't gonna make me a Clash Royale broadcaster. It's just like this is what I enjoy doing, and then it
Yeah.
moved from there, right?
Yeah. I was still part time streaming and I still worked a full time job when I started doing that.
Yeah, that's so
And I
cool.
will say, like, it was a little crazy back in the day because in Clash Royale, you can host your own tournaments within the game,
Hmm.
and you can set your tournament size, but it costs it. I don't know if it does anymore, but it used to cost you your own gems, which are the currency of the game that you buy with real money.
Hmm.
Otherwise, it's a free to play game. But uh, so there are these tournaments that cost. I couldn't tell you how many gems they cost, but basically the gem equivalent of about like $700.
Holy cow!
So if and it would be 1,000 players that could join this tournament, and the prize, the amount of cards that you would win, it's kind of like Hearthstone, well,
Hmm.
but for people who don't know, but the more instead of getting like one card and then you have that card, it's you're leveling up these cards. So the more
Yep.
that you get, the higher level it is, and the higher level your cards are, the stronger you are as a
Hmm.
player.
Yeah.
So earning cards like this is important and a big deal, especially if you're somebody who can't or doesn't want to invest in the game. Anyway, so it was really expensive. So needless to say,
Yeah.
these tournaments didn't happen very often. So when I had
Yeah.
people that were willing to sponsor and start these tournaments, I mean, they with 1,000 players, those things filled up instantly. Like you had to have a
Yeah.
password, and as soon as you said
Yeah.
that password, that thing was full. It was wild. I mean, they don't obviously don't do it anymore, but it was a crazy time.
Wow, that's
And it was
awesome.
great for me, obviously.
Yeah, that's super cool. I love that.
Mhm.
I think I joined tournaments before, but I had no idea it cost that much money to
Yeah.
host
It
one.
was just a small window when they had those tournaments. It wasn't for very long.
Wow, very cool.
Um,
So, when you got into the broadcasting side of it with Clash
Mm.
Royale, what was the life like about being a broadcaster? What did you enjoy about it? What was difficult?
Like when I first started, it was definitely difficult, as I think anybody who's ever started streaming knows, because you're typically, most people when they do it, I think they're doing something else full time, be it
Hmm.
working or going to school or something. And so I worked a 40-hour job and then would come home in the evenings and stream for a few hours, and I'd stream on the weekends. And man, that's a grind. I mean, you
Yeah.
feel like you're working all the time. And so it was a lot of work. And I feel it's so important to be consistent to grow your channel. It just is. And so I really, really push. And like, there are days like where I'm just tired, or like I'm just not feeling up to it, but I would still push myself through to do it. So I think it was difficult. And it was definitely difficult to be self motivating,
Hmm.
because you're essentially your own boss. So you make your own schedule with streaming. That's the great thing of it. But
Hmm.
I will say that I realized, and what I liked about it was the fact that I started getting these opportunities to travel to do different events or to go to different conventions and things, and it ended up being all over the world. And I realized, like, okay, this is what I want to do. Travel is so valuable and so important to me, and
Hmm.
it kept giving me opportunities, and I'm like, okay, like I don't really have that much leave time from my full-time job anymore, so I got to make a decision. And it was a hard decision to leave my job. I cried. I mean, I
Oh,
loved the people that I worked with in my office, and I really loved the job there. But I knew that I think I wanted more for myself or something bigger, and streaming felt like that for me.
that's amazing. I love that story. I mean, and how often did you stream? Were you streaming every night after work
Yeah.
and the
Mhm.
weekends? Holy cow.
Mhm. Yeah. It was a lot.
I'm exhausted just thinking about that. So, but that's
Yep.
awesome that that worked out for you. Like these
Yeah.
opportunities you made yourself through the hard work and investing your money in like the tournaments and then
Yeah.
practicing your craft. It's so good to hear that hard work and manifesting itself into your success that you have today. So cool. Um, So it sounds like the difficulty though was just finding the time to do it, and then also making maybe the tough decision to leave a job that you enjoyed at least to some extent
Mhm.
to maybe take the chance of going full time. You talk a little bit more about what was kind of going through your head when you decided to go full time.
Yeah. I mean, it was definitely scary because so I live in the DC area for people who don't know, and pretty much everybody here works for the government or they're a government contractor or something along those lines. So that's what I did. I was a government contractor
Hmm.
for, I did purchasing for a company that built helicopter simulators, which is super cool and super different from
Yeah.
uh, the streaming. But it's just been it was really hard because it's like you'll never be a millionaire doing a job like that,
Hmm.
but like it is a safe job. You know
Yeah.
what your paycheck is going to be every week. You have health insurance, you have dental insurance, you have paid time off, and so you have all this safety net for yourself. And and I knew I could grow. I had mobility to move up in the company with time, but I started, like I said, like once I started getting these opportunities to travel, I tried to make it work for sure. But I mean, there was definitely, it came down to times where I'm like, I don't have any more paid time off, and there's an opportunity. Like it all came down to, honestly, I had the opportunity to go to France to go to MIPCOM, which is convention, and that was kind of like my tipping point of like I realized like I have to decide because I have this opportunity to go and for work and for esports, and I can take this or I can stay home and continue my job. I had no paid time off to go, so I had to make the decision. And
Yeah.
so that's when I put in my 2 weeks. And like I said, I loved the people that worked there, and I big cried when I left. But I was terrified. I definitely had a safety net being married because my husband, he's got great insurance and all of that. So I am full aware that I'm super blessed and lucky to have that because not everybody has that situation. So it did give me a
Hmm.
little bit of a safety net to to do this and not be kind of left figuring out, oh my gosh, like what do I do?
Hmm.
I guess it could have been a riskier decision than it was for me, but but it still was, and I was kind of giving up the work that I had put in and down that career path of in purchasing and government contracting, and I did like it, but I I've just always been into the entertainment side of things. So to kind of backtrack you a little bit,
Mhm.
when I was in high school, I went to a modeling and acting school called Barbizon, and it was
Mhm.
for girls 8 to 18. And so I went there when I was in high school, and I ended up doing these modeling competitions up in New York City or locally here in DC, and did a little bit of modeling gigs, not so much acting. I
Mhm.
love jobs like the broadcasting or hosting where
Yeah.
you're on stage, whatever, but
Yeah.
you're still yourself. You're not pretending to be a character, you're not acting out a role. I can't do that. And I have full respect for people that can. It's
Mhm.
not for me. But I did enjoy it. I knew that I liked that side of it and that I kind of would have loved to do something in TV or news or talk show host. And so this was kind of a good way for me to get started with it. And I've always been a gamer since I was a kid, so it felt like a good way to have those both of those worlds and something I enjoyed and potentially make something of it.
Yeah, that's a beautiful story. I love that. What do you think it is about, wanting to be like an anchor, be kind of the face that you're so drawn to?
Man, I don't even know. There's just something like you get that feels that something that you're passionate about. Like when I'm like on camera or on stage, like I am just like I'm enjoying it so much. That's my passion. It's something that I just I don't know. Like it makes me feel so happy and so joyful to do
That's
it.
awesome.
So I think that's how I know. And I think it's something that I have practiced and I guess I do well at,
Yeah, you're great at it.
but so I think that's why there's just something about it that I love that whole and I love being live more than anything.
Hmm.
Like that there's just something about being live that you can mess up, but at the same time you can't you
Yeah.
can't really say okay cut let's start over it's on, it's live, this is your one take, you got to make it happen. And there's just something about that pressure, I don't know if that's the right word, but pressure, I guess, that I
Yeah.
just love and I think
Yeah.
it's so much fun.
That's awesome. That's so cool. Because I've always wondered about that. Because you're also doing is it fitness competitions or were they?
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's another place where you're on stage also.
Yes. So I just did my second one this year. Last year was the first time I competed in bodybuilding, and it is like and I've always been into fitness and nutrition,
Hmm.
and it really is. It's another thing that's kind of mixing those two worlds together. You get to get all glammed up, and you get that time on stage, and I love that time on stage. I really do, and I cherish those moments. It's a lot of work for that, though. It's many weeks leading up to like these one moments on stage, but it's just so fun for me. I'm very passionate about it.
Yeah. Well, and that's another like very unique thing that we have in common that I really appreciate with us as friends
Yeah.
is like eating healthy and like taking care of ourselves. So I always enjoy checking out your
Hmm.
Instagram. I'm gonna have Instagram links, on the YouTube video, and of course many of you guys already follow her too. But like I also like your posts soon as you're done, like finding your meal that you're gonna eat,
Yeah.
after you've taken care of your body so immaculately over however many weeks and months and stuff to prepare. So
Yeah.
uh, yeah, that's awesome. So, as far as like, what advice would you give for somebody that wants to be like, say, well, let's just focus on just the broadcaster piece. Like,
Okay.
what advice would you give to somebody that wants to get into broadcasting?
I would say find a way to try it first because there is something about it. Like you got to be ready for those, I think, moments when you are live
Mm-hmm.
and you always have to be ready for something to go wrong
Mm-hmm.
and to be able to roll with it. So I feel like Twitch is such a good start for that because as we all know as streamers, you always run into tech issues or things just don't
Yes.
go as planned sometimes. And you leave everything the night before and everything's good and you come on the next morning and something doesn't work and you're like, how did this even happen? I don't know. But I think that definitely prepared me for it. But to get into it, I mean, you have to pick a game that that calls for that.
Mm-hmm.
Like Clash Royale ended up doing. I got lucky with it because it didn't at first, but it was still a newer game in the beginning. Um, But like a game, for example, I play now Sea of Thieves. There's not really any casting
Hmm.
opportunities for it. I understand that. I'm okay with it. I have gotten the opportunity to cast it because they have a competitive mode in the game, but it's not the main part of the game. The main part
Hmm.
is the adventure mode for people who don't know it. But I have had the opportunity to cast it, which I'm thankful for. But I could definitely choose a game to stream that that does like Hearthstone. And I
Hmm.
started. That was one of the reasons why once Clash Royale kind of started dying down a little bit, I
Hmm.
realized okay, I need to make a switch. And I tried to make Hearthstone that game with the full intentions of eventually doing shoutcasting for it.
Yeah.
But I just wanted to get deep into the game. I wanted to know the metas. I wanted to know the players, but it just didn't. I don't know. There was just something about it. People do really well for Hearthstone. It just something about it didn't fit for
Hmm.
me, and
Sure.
it took me a while. I did it for about 7 months as my full time game, and there's just I personally think that I for my stream, I think one of the things that make my stream different or unique or is that my expressions. I feel like I'm a very expressive person with my hands, the way I talk and this and
Hmm.
that.
Me
And
too.
there's not much room for that. I mean, there is in Hearthstone, but it's not like Sea of Thieves or a game
Hmm.
where it's competitive or things are happening on the fly. When yeah, you know very well when you're playing Hearthstone, you're sitting there, you're thinking, you're breaking down. It's like chess. You're trying to figure out what's their moves, what moves am I going to make, what card am I hoping to get, and how is my deck going to work against their deck, so to speak.
Right.
So it's a lot of thinking, and I just don't think that was a good fit for me.
Okay.
And it took me a while to realize that. And when I did, I'm like, all right, I got to choose a different game here. So that kind of, but yeah, long story short, I feel like you have to pick a game. And there are so many games out there, a game that you love, but it also has a competitive side that calls for casting in that sense. And I really do think there are so many opportunities to host your own tournaments or to be there, or you can just reach out to, I mean, anything like Twitch rivals or if you see somebody is hosting there's so many tournaments that are happening for third party people, not through the game company, not through Twitch, but people that are hosting their own tournaments. And even locally, man, I there's so many. Once COVID is done, there's
Hmm.
so many DC esports organizations that I have learned of just through networking and like because I think that's another good thing is networking to get started. And I met these organizations because there's a DC Twitch meetup. Most large cities will have a Twitch meetup, and through there, then people realize, okay, you can do this. Hey, we have this esports organization. Would you be willing to host our
Yeah.
tournaments? And so I feel like it's word of mouth and just getting to meet the right person because you never know what they're involved in or who they know, and just letting people know that you're wanting to do that, and you can do that on your stream. You
Yeah.
can shoutcast things on your own. You don't even have to be in a tournament. You can just probably spectate games and shoutcast them or break them down, and people will see your abilities that way.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's great advice. So it actually seems much more easier to get in than maybe many of us think. It's like just practice it, be live.
Yeah.
Being live helps you with when you have the tech issues and when things get screwed up, you
Hmm.
kind of build up that armor ready to segue to something else or
Yeah.
not get flustered, and then just networking. It sounds like connecting with people, saying to the world, hey, I want to broadcast this game. I enjoy it. There's the opportunity to broadcast it. you know if you have any
Yeah.
opportunities, let me know how I can help get involved. I love that.
Yeah. I mean, you just never know. Sometimes it's so unexpected that people, throw your name out for something. And I mean, I feel most of the broadcasting jobs I've gotten are from word of mouth from people saying, "Oh, hey, I know the streamer that can do this or this she can host this." Even for games I don't play, like I've hosted tournaments for League of Legends and Fortnite,
Oh
and
wow.
as a host, not as a shoutcaster,
Hmm.
but I'm still in that network that of that side of the gaming and of that side of these esports tournaments.